over a year ago, where we didn't wait for the contemporary tragedy that has obviously issued a call to advance leadership after the tragedy of George Floyd, but the state led in terms of police use of force last year and efforts to improve our oversight and accountability as it relates to policing in the state, including try to advance the cause of improving our efforts at Post. Those efforts continue, and they will continue, I assure you. I want to make this crystal clear into the new year. There are a number of people that have joined us here today that have been part of that cause for years and years and years, part of the efforts in the past, part of the efforts that unite us here today, in particular, a number of bills that I'll have the privilege of signing. One that has generated a lot of attention, Senator Gibson put into play, and that was a bill related to the issue of chokeholds and carotid holds and issues that self-evidently need to be addressed, and done so with the kind of assurance that we'll never resort back to the kind of training that we've been advancing and the kind of hold that clearly is precipitated in the loss of lives. And so it is a very meaningful bill. It meets the moment. It's a purposeful bill, and I'm very grateful to the Assembly members' leadership and his stewardship of the process to get this bill down. Accordingly, an area that has long been an area of consideration, conversation, and that's the relationship of local law enforcement, their capacity to do independent oversight and investigation in relationship to officer-involved shootings. This is near and dear to me, going back to my time as a county supervisor, as a county mayor, working as a lieutenant governor and addressing some of the issues that Mayor Ed Lee was facing in San Francisco, and then Attorney General Kamala Harris, and now working with our current Attorney General Becerra. This has been an area I know a focus for many of you that are assembled on this call. And I'm very, very pleased Senator McCarty was able to take this space to be able to put this bill together. None of these bills are easy. They may appear to be easy on the outside. So many constituencies, so many nuances, a lot of folks pushing back. But I think under the circumstances, the fact that we were able to get this far is a big deal and testament to the Assemblyman's leadership. And I'm very, very pleased to be able to sign this bill that is long, from my humble perspective, long overdue here in the state of California. So, Member, thank you for your hard work on this. And again, they'll say it. I don't have to say it for them. You'll hear from both the Assembly members in a moment. But we wouldn't be here without all of you pushing us, demanding more from us, raising the bar in terms of expectation. That's the dialectic that is often present here, not just in the legislature, but we're seeing more and more out on the streets all across this country. And that's an important conversation, and it's important that we heed those voices. And so I hope people recognize we're moving in the right direction. And again, I just recognize we have a lot more work to do in this space, and we are not walking away from that responsibility. And that's why, in closing, you're going to hear from Latifah Simons, worked with Ron Ronald on this phone, well known to all of you. They've been advising on some broader policy reforms, working with the Goldman Institute at Berkeley to advise me and advise all of us. They have a preliminary report that they are socializing today, and Latifah will update us on some of that, which will be a preview of some of the work we'll be doing in the next few months that we hope to manifest and codify in a legislative package in January. So with no further ado, forgive me for being long-winded, and Nisha, we're going to listen to you, and you're going to sum all this up, put a human face on it. And I'm grateful that you're here as well. But with that, let's start off with Mike Senator Gibson. Thank you again for your work on these chokeholds.
Mr. Governor, let me simply say thank you very much. I want to say good afternoon to you, Mr. Governor, and thank you for your leadership during this very extraordinary, challenging time that we face in our state with COVID-19. Mr. Governor, I don't know if you remember, but on June 5th, you said that if a bill banning these restraints got to your desk, you would sign that bill. I'm happy to report that bill is on your desk today, and I look forward to you signing that bill. In the midst of everything else that you have going on, I know that this bill is in response to the murder, to the execution of George Floyd by the people who took a oath of office to serve and protect their community. Not only George Floyd, but Eric Garner, and also Fernand Vincent Venezuela, who was a young man who lived here in California, who lost his life due to one of these restraints being placed on him. He, like many others, have cried out, "I can't breathe." And law enforcement must now use alternative methods to restrain a suspect instead of these life-threatening holds. I want to pause a moment and thank my colleagues in the California State Assembly for their yeoman's work in supporting this bill 1196. The California State Senate, local leaders, we have with us Mayor Asia Brown from Compton, Mayor Albert Robles from the city of Carson, community members, and all the supporters who actually signed the petition that we organized around. I also want to thank the California National Action Network, Policy Link, CFA, Alliance for Boys of Men of Color, hashtag Cut50, Stop Coalition, YJC, RJC San Diego, also Ryan Harrison, and the California Association of Black Lawyers, two brothers of the Divine Nine, which is Dr. Bo Rick representing Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, which I'm a member of, and also Dr. Anthony Samad representing Sigma. Also, I want to thank our Attorney General, Javier Pacero, who's worked with us in this regard for doing a yeoman's work in their staff working with us. The California Legislative Black Caucus under the leadership of Dr. Shirley Weber, Senator Maria Elena Durazo, who floor jockeyed this bill for us, a very tenacious and powerful voice in the Senate in California. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Governor, I must thank my speaker, Anthony Rendon, for his tremendous leadership, for being a joint author of 1196. We've done this work, but we have so much more work to be done. Governor, I want to say thank you once again for not signing this bill, behind closed doors, but inviting us in to celebrate you, and we celebrate your leadership. This represents change in California. It's almost like when you can walk out your door and you can smell rain before you see it. We can smell change in the air, and the change starts today, and it's under your leadership. And I want to say thank you very much. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce a drum major for justice, my colleague who hails from Sacramento, my friend, my brother, Assemblymember Kevin McCarthy.
Thank you, Assemblymember Gibson. I wish I could have you always introduce me because you get it going. And I'm pleased that, Governor, on your desk as well is AB 1506, the Deadly Force Accountability Act. And Governor, when you were Lieutenant Governor, running for governor, and you sat down with us, the Black Caucus, we talked about then AB 392 and some of the other major pieces of legislation. And this was one that we talked about that day. You knew it was always an inherent conflict of interest with police essentially policing themselves. And after 3.5 tries, I have this bill before you today. So thank you for your help along the way. And I just want to say out the gate, your staff, your team, Jessica and others down there really worked with us over the weekend, those last few weeks, to make this reality. This is really complicated. As you said, sometimes these bills look easy, but they're not. So there was a lot of work behind the scenes. Again, this has been an effort before George Floyd, but really the murder of George Floyd before our eyes, put these issues in the spotlight, and it allowed us to get bipartisan support, which I'm proud of. I know you wanted us to make sure that we got everybody to think about how this is a good change for California, not just for police reform. We had DAs up and down the state saying it's time for this needed change as well, bringing about independent investigation for incidents of deadly force. You know, this, look, the analogy that I've always said is, you know, this week we're starting the Major League Baseball playoffs. And how would you feel if watching a playoff game if the umpire was part of one of the teams? And that's essentially what you have with local police policing themselves. No one trusts the transparency, the accountability, the oversight. There's just too much distrust. That's why we've seen 5 states. I know California leads in many ways, but 5 states across the nation have already done this. And this is a needed reform. This again was a priority of our legislative Black Caucus. We had, believe it or not, you look at the bill, nearly 50 joint authors on this bill. And reporters asked me, why do you have so many joint authors? And I said, well, this is the 3rd time I've tried. You know, I'm gonna load it up this time and make sure we get plenty of support. So, you know, usually we invite some of the joint authors to join us, but I couldn't invite all 50, so it's just me here today. So this is an important bill, partnering with our Attorney General, and it really has 2 parts I just want to briefly go over. One is bringing about accountability for officer-involved shootings of an unarmed civilian, having an independent review. When an officer does cross the line, there needs to be an investigation and accountability and potentially prosecution. With AB 392, we've seen a couple of police officers being held accountable for when they do cross the line. But also, Governor, we want to make sure we prevent these incidents in the first place. So the second part of the bill is equally important. It will task the Attorney General to focus on the police practices of cities up and down California. We did this here in Sacramento after the death of Stephon Clark. The Attorney General releases a report, essentially does an audit of police practices and brings about reforms that they could focus on. We're doing it right now in Vallejo. So this bill is going to be having prevention as well as accountability. We will build upon this. We know that we're going to have to work with our Department of Finance and work on funding this next year. So this is a starting point. It's an important step for California. The people of California have been asking for bold action, not tinkering around the edges on police reform. With us today are 2 bills. I know there's some other bills in your consideration. And of course, you know, people want us to act more, and we will always be looking at those. I know your task force is doing just that, but this is an important piece of the puzzle for California, bringing about needed police reform for our communities to make our communities safer. Thank you for your support of this measure. And with that, I'm now going to introduce, I mentioned your team. You have I'm not sure if they ever have the right title of it, but Policing or Police Reform Commission, and your co-leader right here, Latifah Simon, briefed us earlier this year, is doing a fine job. And I know they're gonna come out with their findings very soon. So Latifah, let me have you now join the program.
Thank you so much. What an exciting day. You know, I think the governor and the folks who are listening, we can think back nearly 60 years in the sit-ins in Greensboro when young people came to sit at a lunch counter at a downtown Woolworth, peacefully protesting and assembling, hoping to shift not only Greensboro, but the world and these United States, calling for desegregation. Governor, when you ask Chief Ron Davis, 30-year track record of working on police reforms as a chief and as a reformer and advisor to then President Obama, and myself, someone who has been committed also to justice and transformation of our systems. You asked us almost 5 months ago to go up and down the state, which we have done, speaking to hundreds of community groups, law enforcement agencies, including Cal Chiefs, community members and mothers who've lost their children, both to community violence and violence at the hands of law enforcement. You asked us to come to these communities with open questions, asking what could safety look like? We talked to members in the business community, we talked with the chambers, and one of the things that became clear in the report that we just gave to you last night, that there is a recognition that in this moment, like Greensboro, the majority of the activist pushes, the majority of the protests in the state of California have been peaceful. It's also been clear that many of the stakeholders that we talk to, Governor, truly believe that as we move forward, that provocation makes First Amendment rights less palpable. In the many recommendations that we gave you in the report last night, there are about 13. We're not done yet, but we are very clear that community as a whole, we believe that there's change to be had and change to be made, and we are committed to continuing to work with you, with both activists and organizers and law enforcement, and again, leaders from all over the great state to get it right, that law enforcement and community, we must transform and reimagine public safety. We are hard at work, and I want to thank everyone today in this virtual room to being committed to a thoughtful, clear process that makes everyone safer. We're getting there. And in terms of this report and the recommendations, again, there's more work to do, and I can't wait to have you read it and have members of your staff and members of the assembly and members of the community review what we've done. So we're just getting started here. There's a lot of work to do, and I believe in this process. Thank you so much. And thank you, Chief Davis.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Latifah, for all your hard work, and look forward to getting through that. And I appreciate all your recommendations. And by the way, just broad strokes, this goes to how we engage in protests and what our protocols and processes are, mutual aid, our expectations in terms of cameras, expectations in terms of the utilization of certain use of force techniques. So they decided to dive right in, and they've worked hard, and they weren't shy in making some recommendations that I think will generate a lot of energy and perhaps more importantly, expectation in terms of our resolve to move things forward as we must. With that in mind, and I see Ms. Hollins, you are here with us. We thought it'd be a wonderful way to end this, Tanisha, talk about, you talk about a lived experience as a survivor, as someone that has a personal connection to a lot of the conversation we're having here today. And we're really honored to have you close this out, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you so much for having me, Governor Newsom. I have so much gratitude and so much respect for the team that you've assembled and all the work that's been going on this issue for decades. I echo everyone's sentiments that it's a long time coming and we have a long way to go. I also want to just thank you for your leadership, especially in this year and in this climate. It's made me proud to be a San Franciscan. We always wear that with pride, and for sure a Californian, especially considering all of the terrors that we are in, battles that we're all up against right now. I do have lived experience in different capacities, and I want to acknowledge that in this moment, we still have families of victims of police violence who are somehow managing to deal with the trauma and the public scrutiny that they were forced to live with when they lost their loved one to a police shooting or contact, an incident. And that those families are still fighting for justice and to be recognized as victims and with no support. And to Tifa's point, and in speaking with crime victims all over this state, as the director of Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice, it's become clear that we need to do the work of making sure that those survivors and those victims get the support that they need and deserve. We'll continue to push that this year. We had a strong piece of legislation, AB 767. We're looking forward to continuing that work next year because we know how important it is to address the trauma and make sure that our communities heal while we continue to push these historic changes so that what happened and what has happened never happens again. And of all the titles that I wear and all the hats, Mama is the one that brings the most joy and also bears the most weight. I'm a Black mother of a 16-year-old Black boy who prays every day that he will never have an encounter with law enforcement. He's the only male member of my family that hasn't at this point. And if and when he does, I hope that that incident doesn't result in another horror for my family or for our community. So I stand here with pride. I stand here with hope. I stand here with responsibility and accountability and with great gratitude. I'd like to ask you and thank you to go ahead and sign in those protections that our community needs and deserves right now into law.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the formal request. By the way, I would be, just because, and Senator McCarty, you're here. You have another bill that's pending. I'm realizing it's Wednesday. It's the last damn day to sign things. But you got a bill on sheriff oversight that you've been working on for years and years and years. You want to explain that a little bit? Maybe socialize. I know a lot of folks on this call work with you on that bill, but perhaps you could talk a little bit more broadly about it.
Yeah, this is my last chance to get that signature. So I got my A game right here. So this brings about, frankly, taxpayer oversight for our sheriff's department. Many cities in California, their law enforcement isn't a police department, it's a sheriff. They also run our county jails. A lot of these massive payouts for excessive force and deadly force are from our sheriff's department. Many of our police departments, like in LA, and San Francisco, and Oakland, you know this when you were mayor, they have police oversight commissions. The county sheriffs historically have said, you know what, our oversight is the election every 4 years. You don't need to be looking at us. The voters give us oversight every 4 years. And we're saying, you know what, no, that's really not fair. Oversight is an important part of government. It needs to be fair. And this just says that if a county ever does create an oversight commission, the sheriff can't ignore it, like they did here in Sacramento when the sheriff literally changed the lock of the door for our former police chief that was the inspector general, like you're seeing with the stonewalling in LA County, who doesn't want to let their elected sheriff oversight body do their work. So this just says if you're a county that has one of these things, sheriff, you can't ignore their work. And if you do, we'll have subpoena power to allow them to get the information they need to do their job. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Assembly Member. And let me just again, we'll close, and let me just express again gratitude to all of you. Senator Durazo, thank you as well for your stewardship of these assembly bills and your hard work getting your colleagues to be supportive. That is obviously meaningful, and you were very impactful in helping steward these bills to my desk. I see Lenore Anderson. I can't be remiss not to acknowledge Lenore and all her extraordinary work and her organization over the course of many, many years. Mark, you seem to be on every damn one of our Zoom calls. It's good to see you, man. Thank you for all your hard work as well across the spectrum. All of you, I could keep going. There's Reverend. Thank you for being here, Porter, and everybody that else is assembled. I think there's 30 plus of you. But let me just jump right in. And Tanisha, I'll answer your question in the affirmative by beginning in the order, or signing in the order that we began our presentations, and begin with AB 1196. Assemblyman Gibson, thank you again for all your hard work. And let me make sure to affix the signature, make that all meaningful. So we got that one done. Congratulations. Thank you to all that.
Thank you.
Everything you did. Assemblyman McCarty, 1506. As they say, God's delays are not God's denials. 3.5 years. Here we are, and honored to now sign that bill.
Thank you.
Now law here in the state of California.
Excellent.
And just because you were on your A game, brother, let's bring home that oversight bill. I know how hard you worked on this, and let me just say this: you were, and I just on this bill in particular, you know, this one's one of those bills where, you know, I don't want to get into the merits of demerits, except to say you'll know where I land in about 20 seconds. But what I want to express is gratitude to the author and you for your sensitivity to the concerns, your willingness to work with our office, to make amendments, to be as responsive in that process as you were, to be dogged in terms of your determination to get the outcome, but to not be ideological in that quest on how to achieve that. And for no other reason, I just want to reward, or rather recognize, your willingness to work through that process and that labyrinth, and to check in as often as you did to make sure that we were on a path. And that's not always the case. And so I want you to know, for all those reasons, that bill just got signed. So well done, and thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you.
All of you, we really appreciate you. Ron and Latifah, we look forward to socializing your report. And everybody, just know we're just getting started in this state. Looking forward to the next few months and the next few years. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.